Hey, Awana friends, it's Miss Christy. So this week is Worm Week. So I hope that maybe you could find me a worm. You don't have to, if you don't want to. I'll just give everybody the points. I don't want your worms, but I do have something to put in your goodie bag. That is a fake worm. I found these. They look really real. They are really gross looking. They're brown and you can use them for whatever you want. You can take them fishing, or maybe it's already past April Fool's Day, but you might, be able to still scare a mom or a sister with these, or a brother if he doesn't like bugs. So, anyway, I'm going to give you a few worms, and I have a whole bag of these things, so I'm going to give you all some of those. Also, I'm going to get you some real worms to eat. No, not real worms. Real gummy worms. So I'll give y'all each a little gummy worm packet, and you can have the fake worm just to play with. Okay? So that is what I have in your goodie bag this week for Worm Week. And worms are interesting. They are mentioned several times in the Bible, actually. They are, and they're used in different ways too in the Bible stories. In Psalms, David, who wrote most of Psalms, David calls himself a worm, thinking about all the terrible and wrong things that he's done. And here in Psalms, it's when you call someone a worm, or when you're like David referring to yourself as a worm, it means that you're just the lowest of the low, and that person is just not worth anything. And so it's saying that someone is just no good. And David, he was really hard on himself a lot. Whenever he would do something wrong, he would just feel terrible about it. So that's why in that passage in Psalm, it said that he called himself a worm. David was very hard on himself, like I said, from time to time, but he always asked God, somewhere usually at the end of the psalm, he would start praising God and ask for God for forgiveness as well. And so God always forgave him, and David always turned to God for help and forgiveness as well. Isaiah talks about worms in chapter 66 and verse 24, and it says in that section of Isaiah, he prophesies about how men who are against God will have no relief. It says, for their worms shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched. What do you think he's talking about there? Yep, he is talking about life in hell for those people who do not follow God. And so after the world is judged and the world has ended, he's saying in Isaiah that there will be no relief for those people. You won't die, it will be an eternal torture in hell. Jesus also speaks about the same quote about hell is mentioned in Mark, where Jesus says that it's better to suffer through the physical pains of life. He says it's better to cut off, your hands or your feet than to go to hell, where the worm dieth not and the fire is not quenched. So again, that's another reference back to what Isaiah said, and Jesus here himself is talking about how bad hell is going to be, so for those who don't believe in God. And so worms are talked about in that capacity as well. In Deuteronomy 28, I found another passage about worms. It mentions that the curses of those people who do not follow the commandments of the Lord. And there's a whole list of curses going on. And one of them says that the worms will eat the grapes in the vineyards as one punishment, but also worms are mentioned. It talks about how in that section it says, like I said, a whole list of curses, and it also mentions that you can plant your grapes in your vineyards and they will be eaten by worms, and that was a curse that would come upon those who didn't believe in God. And then later on, there's another place where worms are used as a punishment, where worms are mentioned in Acts 12:23 as a death to Herod. It says that Herod was eaten by worms because the people were praising him and saying, you are like God. And he was like, yes, I am. And God punished him and cursed him by giving him worms that it says ate his insides. so that's kind of gross. But worms can be used as a punishment as well by God, because who's in control of all the worms and all the things of the world? God is, because God made them. So even the animals are under God's control. So remember that. The rocks and the animals and every part of the earth and the universe is all part of what God created. So he has control of all those things. So here, worms can be used as a punishment. And then there's just lots of different mentions of worms, and also of just in general bugs and different insects in the Bible. And all kinds of animals are mentioned in the Bible. I went and picked up a book in the library not too long ago. It was on their shelves they have in the front for sale, and it had a listing of all the animals that are mentioned in the Bible. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I might use that for some lessons sometime. And I did. But there's lots of animals and lots of bugs that are used in the Bible to show you different stories, to show you punishments by God, to show you a variety of different stories. And so if you're interested in any kind of bug or anything like that, take a look in the Bible and see what it says about them. Just get in there and explore. There's so many different topics. I was thinking this morning when I was making my lesson, I'm like, there's so many. I don't think I could ever run out of stories in the Bible, because there's so many topics you can choose. There's so many things to help us in here. And a lot of the things that God uses to help us understand things are things in the world around us. So a lot of times he's going to use spiders or bugs or worms or ants, because we understand those things, and those are the things in nature around us. And so get in there and explore what the Bible says about different topics and different things. They're full of interesting stories. There's a lot of stories about locusts in the Bible. And locusts are actually, like, the big ones are coming this year. Like the 17-year ones are coming this summer. So you're going to see lots of locusts this summer. So that'll be interesting if you're reading about stories about locusts in the Bible this summer while you're actually seeing the locusts outside. So there's lots of fun things in there. Even something as simple as like an ant. Ants have stories in the Bible. So I encourage you to get in the Bible and just explore and look around. And if you see something out there in nature, say, hey, what does God say about birds? Just look up birds in the Bible, and have your parent help you if you need to. And there's lots of interesting things in the Bible to find out about. So that is my Bible lesson for the week about worms. Get in there and find some more worm stories if you want to. Job talks a lot about worms as well. I didn't get into that story, but there's lots of instances of worms mentioned in Job. All right, so Exodus 16 is where we're going to get our trivia question for this week, okay? Exodus 16. So let me give you some background a little bit. In Exodus 16, the Israelite people are wandering around the desert. Remember, they wandered around the desert for 40 years. And so they're wandering around. Moses is their leader, and they have just left Egypt. They have left Egypt. They crossed through the Red Sea. They got across. The chariots and the Pharaoh, they were all destroyed when the water came back down from the Red Sea, and nobody was left to follow them. So they carried on. But they did so much murmuring and complaining, the Lord said, you're going to stay in the desert for 40 years until I tell you can go. And so they wandered around, and they started complaining because they didn't like the food that they had, and they didn't like a lot of things. So when they started complaining about the food, the Lord told Moses, he said, listen, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to send the quail every night, and you will eat the quail that I send every night to you. Then in the mornings, I'm going to send something called manna. I'm going to send a food from... It ends up on the ground. It's like in the dew. And so the Lord sent quail every morning, and he sent this manna every evening. The quail in the evening, the manna in the morning. Except on the sixth day. On the sixth day, you were supposed to gather up enough for the sixth day for you to eat, and the seventh day for you to eat. Because on the seventh day, you're supposed to keep the Sabbath and make it holy. And so, or keep it holy. And so what they did was they gathered enough food for those 2 days, but every other day it was go out in the morning, pick the manna up, eat it, eat just what you need. Only take what you need for that day. And if they got too much manna, it was destroyed by worms. And so it was no good. And anything that was left on the ground that was not eaten would melt by the hot sun by midday. And so that's what happened to the manna every day. They had to rely on God. He was trying to teach them to rely on him every single day for their basic needs of food. And so that's the whole point of why God sent the manna and the quail. So here's a question though. In Exodus 16, there is a verse that tells you the Bible definition of what manna was. What was manna? So that's what you're looking for. That's the question for you. And I'll even give you a further clue. There are 3 things that they mention that manna tastes like or looks like. And it gives 3 different descriptions of manna in this one verse. And so tell me what manna looks and eats like. Okay, so tell me about those things about manna, and that will be your trivia question for the week. Okay, our last trivia question was from the book of Job last week. Now this was Job 6, and the answer was in 6 as well, 6:6. So in Job 6:6, Job is talking about let's see, let me find it here. He's talking about how sorrowful he is about these things that have been happening to him. And he says in verse 6, can that which is unsavory be eaten without salt? Is there any taste in the white of an egg? So the white of the egg was your answer from last week because we were talking about eggs. And so I asked you, what did he ask was there no taste of in the egg? And the answer was the white of the egg. Okay, so that was our answer from last week, was from Job 6:6. And this week, look up Exodus 16 for your answer about worms, okay? Not worms, manna, sorry, manna. What are the 3 aspects of the Bible definition of manna, okay? All right, and next week is going to be a fun one. It is What Am I Night. So you'll have to come back and see what that's all about, okay? So I've got some guessing games next week for you, so that'll be fun. But come back, it'll be like a mystery, and you'll have to figure that out. All right, y'all have a good week. I love you, and I'm praying for you, and if y'all need anything, let me know. Remember, our picnic is coming up, and this is for the Awana families who have been participating all year through Awana, and I think I've talked to everyone by now. And gotten an answer about who will be coming on May 15th to the picnic at the church for the Awana families for our end of the year party. And I'm going to have some fun stuff there. I got to get some stuff ordered and get it here. And I'm also going to have some awards coming up. Those awards are going to be during the month of May on Sunday mornings. On Sunday mornings, I'm going to have an awards. End of the year awards. I'm not going to have everybody there during the week sometime or even one night to come out and do that. We're just going to do it on Sunday morning. It makes it a little bit easier for everybody to get there. And I will do I'll probably do the Cubbies and the Sparks together the first week. And then every week after that will be one class. So I'll get you those dates soon, and I'll make sure that you know and send your parents a message for whoever's getting an award, and so you can be there to get one. Everybody's going to get a little something. I always get you a little something. So, and your gift cards are coming too. And so I will tally up those by the end of April, and we will get those gift cards to you instead of doing the store. And I'll let you know what those choices are as well coming up soon. All right. I hope y'all have a great week and check out those worms in your yard sometime. And better yet, check them out, the worms in the Bible. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.